All right, guys. So some of you were having trouble reading the book pages. So I'm going to record a video for you so that you can hear it and see it. What are the main functions of the nervous system? You can use the internet to chat with a friend hundreds of miles away. You can also use it to gather information from anywhere in the world. Like the internet, your nervous system is a communications network. It includes the brain, the spinal cord, and the nerves that run throughout the body. It also includes the eyes, ears, and other sense organs. Your nervous system receives information about what is happening both inside and outside your body. It directs how your body responds to this information. In addition, your nervous system helps to maintain homeostasis. Remember, homeostasis is that body balance we've talked about before. Without your nervous system, you could not move, think, or sense the world around you. Your nervous system makes you aware of what is happening around you. For example, if you were at a cookout like the one shown below in the picture, you would know when the wind was blowing or a fly was buzzing around your head. Your nervous system also checks conditions inside your body, such as the level of glucose in your blood and your internal body temperature. So, your nervous system is responsible for taking in information. Over here on the left side is a quick story that we're going to read of My Planet Diary. Did you ever wake up from a nap only to find that your arm is asleep? What causes this pins and needles sensation? If you lie on your arm for a long period of time, too much pressure is placed on the nerves. The communication between your arm and brain no longer flows smoothly. A decrease in normal signals makes your arm feel odd. The pins and needles feeling actually happens when you remove the pressure from the nerves. Then they begin to send a normal flow of messages from your arm to your brain. You slowly regain that feeling in your arm. Remember, changing your position often when you sit or lie down. If you don't, you'll end up having to wake up your arms and your legs. And so all of that is controlled by our nervous system. When we respond to information, so we're up here on the top left-hand corner by the big giant fly. Any change or signal in the environment that an organism can recognize and react to is called a stimulus. For example, a buzzing fly is a stimulus. After your nervous system analyzes a stimulus, it directs a response. A response is your reaction to a stimulus. Some nervous system responses, such as swatting a fly, are voluntary or under your control. But heart rate, breathing, sweating, and other necessary processes are involuntary responses to stimuli. So remember, we talked about response and stimuli before we came home for school. And that stimuli, remember, is just that change to the environment. And how you respond is your response, right? So you might swat a fly, or you might get hot, so your heart rate might go up, right, to help try to cool your body off. Or you might be running, so your breathing rate goes up. So all of those are involuntary responses. We can control some responses, those are voluntary. We can't control other responses, those are involuntary. Maintaining homeostasis. Remember that homeostasis is that body balance, right? Everything in balance, working together so that we can go through our life processes normally. The nervous system helps maintain homeostasis by directing your body to respond properly to information it receives. For example, when your blood's glucose level drops, your nervous system signals that you are hungry, so you eat. This action maintains homeostasis by supplying your body with needed nutrients and energy. Okay? So all of that is about how your body takes in information and responds to information. Okay? Now, how do the parts of your nervous system work? Your nervous system includes your brain, spinal cord, and the nerves that connect these organs to all parts of your body. Individual cells that carry information through your nervous system are called neurons or nerve cells. A message that a neuron carries is called a nerve impulse. These are electrical or chemical signals. Okay? Neurons are the special nerves that carry nerve impulses throughout the body. A neuron has a large cell body that contains a nucleus. As you can see in the diagram over on the side, that nucleus is in the middle, right? In the middle, nucleus. And it has a very large cell body, and that nucleus, thread-like extensions, these are dendrites, right? And an axon, shown all the way down here, right? Axon tips are on the other end. So dendrites are on one end, and axons are on the other end. Nerve impulses begin in a dendrite all the way at this end of the cell, and they move through the neuron's cell body to the very tips of the axons. Axons and their tissues make up nerve fibers. Nerve fibers are arranged in parallel bundles covered with more connective tissue. Remember from before when we talked about muscles and bones, connective tissues have a job to connect things. These types of connective tissues look kind of like uncooked spaghetti wrapped in a thin plastic. A bundle of nerve fibers are called a nerve, okay? You have actually 3 different kinds of neurons in your body. Your nervous system includes 3 different types. A sensory neuron picks up a stimulus and converts it into a nerve impulse. So it picks up a change in your environment and converts it to information that your brain can process. That impulse travels along sensory neurons until it reaches an interneuron, usually your brain or your spinal cord. An interneuron carries a nerve impulse to another interneuron or to a motor neuron. A motor neuron sends an impulse to a muscle or a gland, enabling it to respond. Motor here just means movement. So it's going to cause a reaction or a movement, a response to a stimulus. Okay? Now, when we move impulses between neurons, this is where it gets a little crazy in your body. Every day, billions of nerve impulses travel through your nervous system from neurons to other neurons or to different body structures to cause a reaction to a stimulus. The place where a neuron transfers an impulse to another structure is called a synapse. This figure shows the gap within the synapse between the axon tip of one neuron and the dendrite of another neuron. At the axon tips, electrical signals carried through the neuron change into a chemical, right? This is very important. This change allows the message to cross the gap. This message then continues in electrical form through the next neuron. These changes are like answering a phone, writing down the information you hear. The change from hearing information to writing is like the change from electrical to chemical. And so it's very important that our neurotransmitters that carry that information, that chemical impulse, right, is a neurotransmitter, that they are in balance. And sometimes we can have an imbalance, and that's what causes certain people to feel more depressed or more anxious in certain times than others, because they have an imbalance in their neurotransmitters and how those chemicals are carried across those synapses. All right, the central nervous system. The central nervous system, like a traffic cop directing car drivers through a busy intersection, your nervous system directs your movements. It has 2 divisions that work together, the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system includes the brain and spinal cord. It acts like the traffic cop. It is the center of your nervous system, right? It controls everything else. The peripheral nervous system includes all the nerves outside of the central nervous system, which are like drivers on the road. So the central nervous system is the center. The peripheral nervous system are the edges or the periphery, kind of like perimeter, right? Peri is the word part that means around. Peripheral. Peri is a part of peripheral. So those are the nerves that are around the body. The brain is the control center of the nervous system. The spinal cord is a thick column of nervous tissue that links the brain to the peripheral nervous system. Most impulses from the peripheral nerves travel through the spinal cord to get to the brain. The brain then directs a response, remember, stimulus, response, which usually travels through the spinal cord and back to the peripheral nerves. Your brain, remember, this is the control center, so this is very important. Your brain has about 100 billion neurons, all of which are interneurons. Each of those neurons may receive up to 10,000 messages from other neurons and may send messages up to about 1,000 more. 3 layers of connective tissue under the skull cover the brain. Fluid fills the space between the middle layer and the innermost layer of connective tissue. This is to help cushion it, right? It's got a layer of fluid around it. The skull, the connective tissue, and the fluid all help to protect the brain from injury. 3 main regions of the brain are the brainstem, down here. You can see they're labeled in the picture. The brainstem, the cerebellum. The cerebellum is right here. It's at the base of your brainstem. And then there's the cerebrum. Where was that? I lost my place. Sorry, guys. As shown in the picture. Yes. Okay. The spinal cord. The brainstem connects to the spinal cord. Run your fingers down the center of your back to feel the bones of your vertebral column, your backbone, right? Your vertebral column surrounds and protects your spinal cord. Like the brain, layers of connective tissue cover the spinal cord. Also, like the brain, fluid protects the spinal cord. So that fluid is really helpful. I want you guys to look in the figure and these little kind of talk bubbles around the brain, because each part that we just talked about controls a different part. The brain stem that goes and connects your brain to your spinal cord controls your body's involuntary actions. For example, it controls your breathing and your heartbeat, digestion, all of that, right? The cerebellum, right next to it, coordinates your muscle actions and helps you keep your balance. It's in charge of positioning your body, helping you walk, right? Coordinates muscle movement, right? So movement is going to be controlled by the cerebellum. The cerebrum, this large part that looks like a whole bunch of like worms squished together, interprets information. It has input from your senses, like your eyes and your ears and your mouth. It controls movement and carries out complex mental processes like learning and remembering things. So that's the part that you're engaging when you're doing school. Your peripheral nervous system. The second division of the nervous system is the peripheral nervous system. The peripheral nervous system is a network of nerves that branches out from the central nervous system and connects it to the rest of the body. The peripheral nervous system is involved in both involuntary and voluntary actions. The peripheral nervous system has 43 pairs of nerves. 12 pairs begin in the brain. The other 31 pairs, the spinal nerves, begin in the spinal cord. One nerve in each pair goes to the left side of the body and the other goes to the right. Look at the spinal nerves shown in the figure below. Each spinal nerve contains axons of both sensory and motor neurons. Sensory neurons carry impulses from the body to the central nervous system. In contrast, motor neurons carry impulses from the central nervous system to the body, right? And so sensories take in information from your senses. Motor neurons respond to those changes with a movement, okay? Your peripheral nervous system is separated into two sections, your somatic and your autonomic systems. The peripheral nervous system has two groups of nerves. They are the nerves of the somatic nervous system and those of the autonomic nervous system. The somatic nervous system controls voluntary actions, such as using a fork. The autonomic nervous system controls involuntary actions, such as digesting food. So you can see here what we were talking about before with the protection that's offered by your vertebrae to your spinal cord. And remember, there's fluid that fills all these spaces around it to give it that extra additional protection. Now, lastly, we're going to talk a little bit about reflexes. Reflexes are what the brain usually stimulates. Reflexes. The brain usually stimulates the contraction of skeletal muscles. Sometimes, however, skeletal muscles contract without signals from the brain. A reflex is an automatic response that occurs very quickly without control from your brain. For example, when you touch a sharp object, a sensory neuron detects a pain stimulus. They send impulses to the spinal cord. Interneurons pass those neurons directly to motor neurons. The motor neurons cause your arm muscles to contract, pulling your finger away very quickly, like if you touched a sharp cactus or a hot stove. As the reflex action happens, other nerve impulses travel to your brain. As your brain interprets them, you feel a pain in your finger. It takes longer for the pain impulse to reach your brain and be interpreted than it does for the reflex of your action to occur. So you actually move your finger away before you ever even feel the pain, right? By the time you feel the pain, you've already jerked your hand away from the pain, right? So it's pretty cool how our body is set up to protect ourselves. So I hope that helped you guys, and that you can get your questions and vocabulary answered in the slide today. Have a great day, guys.